So in the previous session, we saw that we are able to add attributes to our objects, and we don't have to add them to individual object. We were able to write this code into our class itself, so that any object that you create will have those attributes if they are created from the student class. Now what we want to do is we want to add some methods, some functionality to our objects as well. Okay. For example, if you remember, whenever we had any kind of list, whenever we were creating list, you had functions like insert, remove, pop. So what you were able to do is you were able to ask the list, hey, please insert this data. Hey, please remove this data. And the list was doing that. Similarly, what I would want to do, for example, I will start with a very simple function. I want that I should be able to ask a student to print itself. And the student should print, hey, my name is this and my roll number is this. As simple as that. So student should be able to print itself. So I want to create this function that will basically be applicable for any student object and it will print itself. Now, how will we do that? Let's quickly achieve this. Okay, so this is how your student class looks like right now. And this is our student that we created, and it already has the required data in it. Okay, let me run these things again. Perfect. So our student has name as well as roll numbers. What I want to achieve is, I want to say s1.print, and it should basically print itself. Right now, it does not have any print function, so that's why it's giving me an error. So let's quickly add this function. Right, and what I want to do is I want to print this required data. Now the catch is going to be, you don't have access to this s1 in this function. So how do you get name? How do you get roll number to print? Right. So I want to have access to name and roll number here. That's so that I can print it out. For now, let's just print I am here. Right, let's just print that I am here. So and let's call it print student. Right, let's just so that it's not getting confused with the print function that we are used to. Right. So does not have this. Let's compile it. Let's print. Okay. And when I call print student, it says that it does not have any attribute print student. Right. So we are still getting this error. Sorry, I will have to create this student again. I think that's the problem. So let me create this student again, because the student that I created was from a previous class and I've changed the code. So let's run this again. And now it says a different error. It's giving me a different error. What is it, the error? Print student takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. So it's saying that it takes 0 arguments, but when we actually called it, 1 was passed to it. There was 1 argument which was passed to it, but right now it does not take any arguments. What was the argument that was passed to it? I think some of you would have guessed it by now. What actually happens here is, when you say s1.print student, this s1 is actually passed to you as the argument in your function. And that is very important, because if I have the object for which I need to print data, I'll be able to use that object to access the attributes as well. So my function here actually should take 1 argument, because when I call it, 1 argument is passed. And what is that argument? That argument is the object on which it is getting called. What do we call that? We call it self. So self is being passed here. Okay, so let me repeat this. What happens is, instead of worrying about this, what happens here? When you call this function, effectively print student is called, this function is called, and this s1 is actually passed as the argument automatically. So you need to say that I'm taking 1 argument, otherwise the function will not match. Right, so now what you can do is, now you have all the information that you needed, and you can say my name is, you can say self.name, then you can say and my roll number is, and then again you can say self.roll number. Perfect. We'll have to create this object again, and it's printing what we wanted it to print. Right, so extremely simple concept. The way you should think about this is, when you are saying this, what's actually happening is, you have student class. So you're calling student class print student function, and you are passing s1 as the argument. This is effectively what's happening. When you say this, this is what happens. That's why student class print student function is taking 1 argument, and this argument is the object on which it is called. In reality, if you want, you can actually call print student this way. Right? There is no difference between this and this. There is absolutely no difference. Right? I've written it to be instance method because this method I can call on the object directly. Right? It gives me a feeling. This gives me a really good feeling. S1, go print yourself. Right? Print yourself. So that's why it's getting print. It's printing the name and the roll number of the object on which it is called. So s1.print student. Were you confused when I said, in case of a list, if I say l.insert, let's say 5. Right? I don't think it's the correct syntax, but let's say I say 5. There is no confusion, right? In which list 5 is going to get inserted to. This is the list in which 5 is going to get inserted to. It's very obvious. That's exactly how we want to write our code. We want a student, and we want to say s.assign assignment. Assign problem, right? That this problem is assigned to this student. So we want to be able to write code in this way, but this actually means the same thing as well. And the way you write it, any function you write, it will have the first argument, which will be the object on which the function is getting called. You want to pass any other arguments, extra arguments, you can do that. You can pass as many arguments as you want, all those arguments will be passed here as well, but there will be one additional argument, that is self. So if you pass 2 here, this function will receive 3 arguments. 2, the ones that you passed, and the third one will be the object on which the function is called. Okay, so that's how we are able to write methods as well. So we know how to create data and we know how to create methods as well. So in the next session, starting in a couple of sessions, we will be creating a very interesting class, a fraction class, and things will get a lot more clear, because that the student class is a little abstract. But when we build a fraction class, that'll be a lot more relatable. That will make a lot more sense. Okay, so we'll start that, and I think things will be absolutely clear. Okay, perfect. Thank you.